So, Al, good morning.
Hello, my friend. Nice to see you.
Oh, we have been in the background, I don't know,
hmm
really like laughing and not laughing
hmm
because we've been trying to work out how to start this week's
This.
episode.
hmm
And the funny thing is, the topic we want to bring today is the question, what's holding you back?
mm.
For most of us, yeah, it's this. Well, one of the reasons, one of the things is the need to get it right.
Mm.
And even us starting this episode, how do we start and get it right?
Yeah, look, how do we start and get it right? And I mean, every time we show up together, Kath, and we do the podcast, that is a thing that we talk about. How are we going to start our episode? What are we going to talk about? All of these
Yeah.
things. And yet, usually, as our recording goes, we absolutely find our flow and it all works out because we're showing up as friends. And
Yes.
yet every week, we have this conversation and we're laughing and laughing today because the conversation is about perfection or what's holding us back. And we want to get it right. We want to start the podcast in a way that's engaging, that captures people's attention, and gets us in the direction that we think we want to head in. Um,
Yeah.
but there's no real rules, is there?
And this is the challenge because so often I think we love to know that we have steps and we have rules
Mm,
and that they are clear in front of us. And so we
mm,
can just do the next thing we know to do with,
yeah.
knowing that the outcome's going to be perfect. That's what we, long for.
We do long. And why are we longing for it, I wonder? Like, what is it? What are we looking for? What are we hoping for?
Ah, hands down, it's the certainty of getting it right. It's the
Yeah.
certainty of n not failing. It's the
Mm,
certainty of knowing that we're going to achieve what we set out to achieve.
hmm
And I think when there's, if you think about a time in your life where you stepped out and been confident in what you're about to do, and there's a certainty that you're going to
mm,
do it well and there's not going to be a problem. It's almost like we don't give it a second thought because we know that there's no
yeah,
stress, there's no fear here. I'm going to step out and do this thing and I'm going to
sure.
I'm going to come out on top.
Yeah.
But it's when things are not clear and
Mm.
when there's the possibility of imperfection and messing up,
Yeah.
that becomes a place of we fear that, and it's not safe.
It's not safe. As think back over my life, I know imperfection. So, for example, going for my driver's license,
Yeah.
way back in the olden days. I was so worried about failing, which we all would be, right? But I remember feeling so stressed and all of those things. But hey, we're learning something. We're learning a skill. And we're not going to be perfect the first time we do anything.
Mm.
And I look back over my life and it can hold us back. But what's fascinating to me is this desire to get it right first time is still there, even though the evidence suggests, like if the things I've showed up for that I've known, look, I cannot do this. The chances of me not succeeding are very, very high. And yet I've done it. And
Yeah.
I've done it well to the point I'm so proud of myself. And yet every single time when I'm coming up against a new, I don't know, this podcast today, not knowing how to start, being worried about getting it right, it's still the same thing, this
Yeah.
fear of not getting it right. But the evidence suggests, hey, I got my driver's license. You
Well
know,
done, Al. Funny
it,
story though. Funny story. I had to go and redo my driver's license after immigrating to Australia
oh,
because back then it's changed. The laws have changed, but back then
okay.
the Australian government wanted you, even though I'd been driving on a license for 20 plus years, or no, yeah, wasn't quite 20 plus, but anyway, I needed to redo my driver's license for Australia. So I think there was a
Mm,
grace period of a couple of months where you could still drive on your international driver's license.
okay.
But then after a certain time, you needed to have redone the test and had at that point we were living in Queensland, so a Queensland driver's license.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's same thing. It was like, oh my gosh, and I've been driving,
Yeah.
without any fear or without any
Evidence
concern about getting it
suggests you
right
can
or wrong.
drive.
And yet it was a thing, the nerves and the fear.
Yeah.
And you know what? I failed my first
Oh,
attempt
did
in
you?
Australia. And I mean, Happy and I had a good laugh about it after the time, but I was mortified because I thought, no, this is ridiculous.
Mm.
And the crazy thing was, apparently I'd made a fatal error that I didn't even realize I'd made. I was looking at the instructor and she was like, "Oh no, turn around, go back. That's a fail." And I'm like, "What have I even
What?
done?" And anyway, she'd asked me to make a right turn and I cut the corner and I
Okay.
hadn't anyway, that was apparently a fatal error. And so I went back and I thought, oh my goodness me, how am I ever going to pass? Anyway,
Mm.
I managed to pass the second time around. But you are right. I think so many people that I've come across in my coaching journey, and myself included,
Hmm.
there is this fear
Mm.
when we're stepping into territory that's either unfamiliar or it's new, or maybe it's not even unfamiliar, but it feels like the stakes are high in
Yeah.
getting it right.
Yeah.
Like we put this pressure on ourselves, even in the coaching space, practicing coaching
Yeah.
and going into a coaching session and this fear of, oh my gosh, what if I
Hmm.
get it wrong? What if I
I don't ask the right questions.
yeah,
What if I don't know what to say or ask? Or, I mean, I still do that. If I'm being completely honest, we had our group coaching session not long ago, and Kath, you couldn't be there. So it was just me and our group. And in the lead up into that moment, I was so nervous because I was thinking, oh, what if I don't have the right questions? What if I don't know what to say? All of these things. And I was really, really nervous. Yet it was a fantastic conversation. The people that were there and myself, it was just a beautiful session together where we just were able to connect. And all of these pressures I'd put on myself were not even a thing once we started.
yeah, yeah.
And I think it's the story we tell ourselves. Where
Oh,
the
absolutely.
perfection,
Yeah.
it's what we're saying to ourselves. And I know we spoke about it recently, a couple of weeks back, where I'd get that nervous, uneasy feeling, and automatically assume that I'm just not good enough. I don't have what it takes. And I think that's part of this perfection thing. I
Yes.
don't have the skill, and even if we do have the skill, we're questioning
Yeah.
ourselves constantly.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about what I've just heard you share though is even though uh like prior the group coaching session where I couldn't be there with you, you were building up this unnecessary, sense of
Mm.
fear because definitely
Hmm.
it was unnecessary. And yet it didn't hold you back to the extent that you canceled the
No.
meeting. You still showed up.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, this fear of not getting it right or the need for perfection
Yeah.
can often hold us back
Yeah.
for sure. And it takes courage to
Yeah.
step into and still show up
Yeah.
even when you're feeling this fear. So I think there's like sort of almost two parts of this conversation. And I think part of turning that dial down on the sense of letting something completely hold you back is
Mm.
by showing up feeling
Yeah.
nervous anyway.
Yeah. Agreed. And as you were just saying all of those things, I remembered I'd shared this quote with a group of people just the other day. And so I've just found it on the phone while you were talking. And it says here, you shouldn't be afraid of failing. You should be afraid of missing out on everything that you dream of because you lack the courage to try. And
Yeah,
so I think, as you were saying that, that thought for me, missing out on what could be, that must weigh heavier on me than
Yes.
that need to get it perfect. Because my goodness, I want to get it perfect, whatever perfect is. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's being part of the human experience. Like we want to do things well, but more important to me, I think I now am realizing, it's I don't want to miss out on all of the things because it would hold me back. Because if I
Yeah.
listened to those thoughts, I could have canned the group coaching. Oh, I'm not feeling well. But I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's great insight to have. So share that with us again. You said the fear of missing out, or the fear of, no, it wasn't missing out. It was the fear of not
Yeah, I'll read
stepping
it.
into the possibilities that you have.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we should be more afraid of missing out on everything that you dream of because you lack the courage to try. So it's missing out on all of the possibilities. It is.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you shared with me after the fact that that group session was
It
just
was
so
beautiful.
um meant to be,
It was meant to
you know,
be.
and I often feel like, you know, well, you and I mean, we've shared often in this space. We both have a faith and definitely
Yeah,
believe in, you know, God's divine hand on things. And I think
yeah.
when we show up and we want to have things perfect and we want to do
Mm,
things perfectly in our own strength, it's like we don't give room for God to show up
mm,
and, you know, be in that space as well. And
mm,
I found the more that I uh, step into the unknown and the uncertainty of just, well, let me just show up,
mm,
even though it doesn't feel like I have the right questions to ask, or you know, don't really know what I'm doing. I think, you know, I'm learning more and more that, oh, that's an invitation for God to come as well,
yeah.
and to, you know, bring what only He can bring into that space. And then
Mm,
often after the fact, looking back, I kind of look back in awe because I just think there's no way I could
mm,
have, in my own
mm.
strength and skill and perfection, um,
Achieve
managed.
that. Mm,
Yeah, yeah. And yet when we just show up in our imperfection
mm.
and let God show up and do the rest, it's amazing
What happens?
what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes a level of vulnerability, which is uncomfortable.
Yep.
Don't think anybody goes, oh, yay, I get to be vulnerable today. I think it's this, yeah, it's a level of vulnerability that we'll never be comfortable in. But I think if we somewhat are okay with being vulnerable and being uncomfortable, that's like where the magic is.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's not an excuse to not grow. And I think we've spoken about that before. It doesn't mean, oh, okay, I can just show up in my weakness today at my job place or on our podcast or whatever. It's not an
Mm.
excuse for that. I think we need to be diligent and we need to do what we can do.
Yeah.
But I love what you said before. Regardless of what we are, where we feel like there are gaps, it allows God to fill that space. And there's
Yeah.
always going to be, well, 100% while we're here on earth, there's going to be gaps. There's going to be,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the wisdom. The wisdom is knowing, you know, how much am I honing my skill set and longing, you know, to play my part, but um it's
mm,
yeah, not only striving in your own strength.
mm,
So it's that balance between uh doing what you can do well. And I think there's the key difference there. It's like sometimes in our minds there's a difference between my best is at this level, like it might be a 7 out of 10, but perfect is a 10 out of 10. And
mm.
we try and fill that gap between the 7 and the 10, you know, or we see that gap and that gap holds us back and we go,
Yes,
no, I'm not going to do
too hard.
anything.
Mm,
Yeah. And it's that bringing your best, but then letting God do the rest.
mm. So
Yeah.
then, what does that actually look like? How do we bring our best to whatever the situation is? Um, and let God do the rest. What does that actually look like, I wonder?
Yeah, well, the thought that came to my mind as you're asking that, and I think this is maybe another whole podcast conversation actually, but we were also before we started recording today, we were talking
Hmm.
about our coaching training, and
Yeah.
and I think so when we're learning a new skill, there is training and there is we get taught. So
Mm.
teachers teach us, we read up in books. There are steps often to learn.
Yeah.
And so I think practically, yes, we can do the work of learning a skill set or following a mentor or learning the steps. And it's one thing to know about something. It's
Mm.
another thing to then step in and actually
Do
do
it.
it yourself.
Mm.
And that takes, I mean, remember those early days.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah.
The fear about getting it wrong and just not doing it right, and especially in
Hmm.
those sessions when we had people observing us in the
Oh, terrifying. Absolutely
my,
terrifying.
my gut actually turns into a knot just thinking about it still.
Yeah.
But okay, so there's that, and I think we can practice those skills, and
Yeah.
I think we should practice skills if you're wanting to
Yes.
become competent in something. But then once you've practiced the skills,
Mm.
there's a letting go, I think, of the need to be perfect and have control of every situation. And
Mm.
especially in the coaching space, I think there's that whole dance with, it's not prescriptive. So you
Mm.
can't prepare and say, well, these are the
Have
questions
a
I'm going to ask
script.
and have a
Mm.
script. And
Mm.
so, but it doesn't mean that you come unprepared.
Mm.
So, there's a level of practice. I mean,
Mm.
even with sport. I mean, if you think about sport,
Yeah.
you can go to the gym and do all your strength training. You can be on the field with your coach and your teammates and learn strategies and skill sets.
Mm.
And then it's the trust in the process that you've
Mm.
you've done all the work, and so you show up on game day.
Mm.
Um, but how much control do you actually have on game
Mm.
day? Yes,
Mm.
you can show up and be the best you that you can be, and that's again, it's being yourself, not trying to be
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah.
And then there's so much other intangible
Variables.
variables on the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
It's your heart, is your heart in it, is
Hmm.
yours like is there enjoyment in it, is there desire in it, and again, it's God's divine intervention in it as well. And
Mm.
it's a whole combination of things. So it's
Mm.
the doing what you can, what you've prepared for and can do, but
Mm.
it's letting go of needing to have everything perfect and have control over the
Mm.
rest of it. Just letting the
Yeah.
rest be just
Yeah.
uncertain.
Yeah. What came when you started talking about sport? So last week, I have to tell you something that happened last week. Well, I'll go back a bit longer. When I first arrived in Townsville, I had this goal. The goal
Yeah.
was to run Castle Hill. Now, the
Yeah.
reason I had that goal was because in Mount Isa, there are two hills that people go and exercise on. And my goal in Isa was to run those hills, and I managed before, leaving to run those
Yes.
hills.
Okay.
So when we arrived here, I was like, right, I'm going to run the hill. So when we first moved here, that was my goal. After several months, I was like, that's a stupid goal. I'm never going to get that goal. Why
And
do I
if you're
even?
listening, yeah, if you're listening and you've never been to Townsville, it is Castle Hill, but I mean, there's so many jokes of how smidgen it's like a
Hmm.
smidgen short of a mountain. Is that right?
Yeah, just short. I
Oh,
can't
because
remember
it's
what the rules
short,
are,
yeah.
but
But it's
yeah.
a pretty significant hill and it's
It
pretty steep.
is.
Yeah.
It's pretty steep and it's a few kilometers. And so, anyway, I canned that goal because the reason I canned it was because I thought I'm never going to get it. So, that was kind of my cop out. And I've been working really hard and doing lots of training lately again. And I picked up the phone the other day because Linky had rung. So Lincoln's my second eldest, and then his wife came in. So we're having this group chat, and it happened as I was about to go out the door for a jog. And so those who know me, I like to jog at a pace where I can talk. Like that's always been my training thing. And plus, why am I running at a sprint race when I can talk with a friend? That's how I think. So anyway, I'm talking on a speaker phone, doing a very slow jog, and I started towards the hill. And by the time we'd hung up, I was halfway up the hill.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
this goal has been in the back of my mind. I've canned it because I didn't think I would ever get it. You know, that removes the risk of
Yes.
failing. But when I realized, Al, you are more than halfway. So then I realized I've been doing all this training. I was just like, I'm going to keep running. And for the first time in my life, I ran to the top of that hill and I ran back
Oh,
down and got home. And I was so, so proud of myself. I still am very proud. You can probably
oh,
hear it in my
good.
voice. Yeah. But I think what happened there was what you were saying before, you sort of letting go of the need to get it all right. And as I
Yes.
was running down the hill, I realized where I'd gone wrong over all the years was I'd been planning for it and thinking it needed to be like this, that, and the other. But when you sort of just hop in and let the flow and the strength of the knowledge that, hey, I've actually done what it takes to be able to do
Yes.
this
Yes.
without looking at all the intricate details, just go and trust. And
Yeah.
it was just the most beautiful, fun. Yeah, still excited. I don't know if I want to do it again, but anyway, I'll worry about that another day. Yeah, and so I think that ties in beautifully. What holds you back? The need. So if I set out that day when I was on the phone to Linky and was like, right, I'm going to run it. When the going got tough, I would have just gone, oh, well, that's right. I don't even want this goal anyway. And I
Yeah.
would have critiqued everything. Whereas this was just sitting in that space. And I think taking action and it's our mind, man, our mindset is it holds us back. The things we tell
Yeah.
ourselves, the story we
Yeah.
tell ourselves. I wasn't even focused on the goal for half of the way up the hill. So
Well, that,
that
yeah,
was
yeah, well, there
it.
you go. There you go. I think you're absolutely right because I think when we get so focused on the goal, that's when all the need to get it right and the need to be
Mm,
perfect comes in and the need to, to have it a certain way. But when we let go, and I like you said, you sort of just, leant into the flow of where you were at. But sometimes when we take our eyes off ourselves
yeah.
and we sort of just look up,
Yeah.
it's it's just amazing what we can get done. So,
Hmm.
I love that story and congratulations. That is awesome. I can't say I mean, I walked the hill a number of times, but I can't say that I ever ran
Uh,
all the way to the top.
yeah.
So well done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. I do miss walking with you. We did that a few times
Yes.
from your
Yeah. No, we'll
house.
have to make another plan for a visit, I think.
I think so. So I guess
Yeah.
people, for our people listening in today, and I'm sure everybody can relate to the need of getting it perfect or close to perfect.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure most people can relate to that. So I guess a couple of take-home things as we finish up, and I guess the first thing is we're always likely to have that feeling and that desire to get it right. I really do think that's part of the human experience, and it's part of what encourages us to go and learn and do new things.
Yeah, yeah. So
But
we're not saying it's wrong, and it's not
no,
about being right or wrong, but
no,
it's knowing that that's what we're going to feel and experience,
yeah,
and then just making a decision that in spite of feeling,
yeah,
perhaps inadequate or that we don't have or we need to get it perfect, trusting that you've got enough and you've
mm,
done enough to, I mean, you said you've done all the training, so you
mm,
have done enough that
mm,
enabled you to manage to get to the top of that hill.
mm.
Um, and yeah, give God space
Give God space.
to enjoy and to come and do what only He can do best.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it takes us moving forward, taking that step, trusting
yeah.
and action. Action's a big part of it. We can't do it. What's that thing you can't move what's that saying? Oh, it's escaped me. Never mind. It started
Next
to be
time.
there, it's gone. Anyway,
Yeah,
as always, love it. So what's holding you back was the question that got us started, and I know that
yeah. And we'd
perfection
love to
often,
hear from you.
but what's
Yeah, and
holding you?
if you've got a specific area in your life where you
Yeah.
felt like you're holding yourself back in an area, we'd love to hear from you. What is that?
Mm,
If you'd like a conversation, a coaching conversation
yeah.
to help get you through, Ellie and I are always keen
Yeah.
to have a coaching conversation. And yeah, we'd love you to join our group. We
Yeah.
have some really good, meaningful
Mm,
conversations that help us all keep moving forward. And so
yeah.
we'd love you to be a part of that if that's something you feel you're ready for.
Yeah.
So,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Okay. All
See you
right.
next week, Al.
All right. Have a blessed day. Hey.